Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri. Today we're going to talk about what to get the gardener that has basically everything. I know the feeling. I'm trying to come up with a Christmas list and I'm like, I just don't know what I want. But if you have that gardener in your life, let me give you guys a few tips here on what to get. And it's going to be books. Many gardeners like to read. We get really involved in, different types of gardening and plants and processes here. But let me go through a list of my favorite books here, some pros and cons, things to think about, and hopefully I can get you guys an idea of a book that might make a great gift for some gardener in your life. Let's start off with the book I got last year for Christmas. It's called The Living Soil Handbook. It's by Jesse Frost. He has a YouTube channel. I believe it's called No-Till Growers. I love his content. The book is very interesting. It's about soil health. He gets into a lot of details. He talks about what he's doing, better methods, different ways to approach gardening in itself. And Jesse is by no means the snob of no-till gardening, meaning you literally cannot till anything. He talks about it in the book and in his YouTube videos and everything else. But the book is very interesting on how to develop essentially really good soil for the garden. It also gets into different types of crop rotations and how they set things up. Talks about a lot of other gardening topics as well. I would argue this is probably a more, I don't want to say a technical book, but he goes in a lot of great depth and detail and he explains it in very simple terms. It has been one of my favorite books. Unfortunately, I have not had a ton of time to read this year, but I would highly recommend that book if you are interested in looking at just a generic book that most gardeners would absolutely love to have. I'll put some links down in the description below if you're interested. If the gardener in your life is a beginner, another book I would recommend, which might be a little more approachable than the first book, is going to be The Autopilot Garden. This book is by Luke Marion. Luke is known as MIGardener, so I've been following Michigan Gardener, MIGardener, on YouTube for a very long time. If you're looking for seeds, for example, I love buying seeds from him. They grow most of their seeds, I believe. The seeds are dirt cheap, like $2 a pack. Every sort of seed I've had from them has germinated very well, so quality seems to be there. But his book is very good on covering the different types of gardening, the styles, and he has the approach, I think, similar to Jesse a little bit, where you're going to take a few different key elements from different types of gardening, and you're going to kind of put them together to try to create a gardening method that just works best for you. But this is a very simple read. It's a fairly quick read, to be honest with you guys. But if you're a beginner gardener, I think this is a great approach just to kind of start thinking about different styles of gardening, maybe things that might work for you in your situation. And there's a lot of just great tips in there as well. Again, Luke has a YouTube channel as well. He has a lot of great helpful videos. One of the things I love the most, so if your gardener doesn't know about Luke, is he has growing guides. So he talks about, the process of growing different sorts of plants and goes through the process of, harvesting and those sorts of methods that are going to require it. So some seeds have to be planted a little bit differently. Carrots, for example, are one of those tricky crops to grow. But anyways, this book I think is a great book for those that are a beginner. Now I'm going to tell you there is a downside to this, and this is good and educational, but he lives in Michigan. If you're going to be in other areas of the country, gardening often varies quite a bit depending on where you're located. And that leads me to finding a regional specific book here. So if you are in Texas, almost every Texas gardener knows who Neil Sperry is. This is Neil Sperry's Complete Guide to Texas Gardening, second edition. This book is amazing. It goes through a lot of different, it's got cool pictures and stuff. I'll show you guys in here. It goes through a lot of different methods and processes. It also talks about different plants and shrubs and flowers. And it has different bios on plants. So you can see here, I think these are going to be chard. These are collards. These are corn. But he gives a lot of information specific to Texas. Now, why that is important is because in Texas, it's a huge state. There are different climates and zones. Again, we don't go up as low of zones like zone 3 or 4, for example. I'm in, I think, zone 8B. But it gives you information about soil type. So Texas, for example, I'm in black clay. If I go 10 miles east of me where one of my friends lives, they have sand. So there's some pieces to talk about that. Texas, another unique thing is that, for example, full sun, when it's on the little plant sticker here, means partial sun because the UV in Texas is so intense. Again, it's not the heat, but a lot of times it's the UV. It just kills the plants and it bakes them to death. Again, these are things you're only going to get with a regionally specific book here. So Michigan Gardener's book, I think it's a good overall book for beginning gardeners. If you're in Michigan, the Northwest or Northeast, or, the Midwest kind of area there. I think it's a great book for those. If you're in other parts of the country or your gardener is, look for something very specific to them. Another book similar to Neil Sperry's, which I've also got, is going to be the new Sunset Western Garden book. It is very similar in style to Neil Sperry's for Texas. This one I think is more of like a West Coast kind of book here. So think like California, Oregon, Washington. And again, as you kind of scroll through the book, it's going to have different flowers and plants, and it's going to tell you things like the zones they grow in, if it's, type of sun, full sun, partial sun, shade, all that, types of watering, and kind of what it attracts, if it attracts, beneficial insects or butterflies or whatever. And this book was interesting when I lived on the West Coast, but it hasn't been a lot of help in Texas here. So definitely look for a book online. You can search them and find different regional books or something specific to there. Reddit has a lot of discussions on this typically as well. They'll talk about which book is the best for your area. But those are the two books I recommend if you're going to be on the West Coast. And then finally, the one thing that most gardeners love to grow are tomatoes. And there's this book called Epic Tomatoes. It is an amazing book. I love the pictures. You can see like this is just a one on a yellow tomato, and you scroll through here and here's a brandy wine and it talks about it. And talks about events in the book. And I have never learned more about tomatoes than this book. It really takes an interesting approach to it. Talks about growing them, how to grow them, how to increase yields. In the beginning, it gives you kind of a really cool picture and diagram of all the different colors and types here. Again, this isn't all of them. There's hundreds and hundreds of varieties. And I love too, if you go to the back of the book, it gives you different sections, and then it will give you a bunch of different varieties. It gives you the shape, size, season, growth, F1 or OP, and then the flavor there. So interesting enough, tomatoes have all different flavors and styles, but this is gonna be for striped ones. And then if you scroll back one page, or you turn back one page here, there's multicolor ones, there's green ones, there's white and orange, more orange ones, more yellow ones, brown ones, pink ones, purple ones. And so it just gives you these great lists and information, insight on tomatoes. I struggle to grow tomatoes here in Texas. In the Pacific Northwest, it was just hands down easy. You'd plant stuff, it would grow magical. But Texas, the heat is killer. But this book has been absolutely amazing. And just reading about tomatoes, thinking about tomatoes, looking at taste profiles and colors and sizes and shapes. If you're going to be looking for just like a really fun book, which I'm guessing most gardeners do not have, this book is just full of awesome colors and great information on tomatoes, and a lot of fun with gardening and kind of how to get into them as well. So I think even if you're a seasoned gardener, this might spark a few ideas on new varieties to try, and it's just really a fun and enjoyable read. There's a little bit of history in the front as well on tomatoes and the heritage of them. So overall, awesome book. I'd highly recommend that one as well. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.